Greetings, Summoners, and welcome back to another Dawn of History battle, today featuring Luster versus the Star Dragon Nova deck. And this is a great example of a list that we'll see, or a gameplay match we'll type to see in Vegas or other launch events, and it can go long, so I'm building more of like a value and not all-in combo Luster deck. For example, this deck list is available on the channel. I think it only changed like 3 or 4 cards, but more or less stayed the same. And, well, Star Dragon Nova is going to do Star Dragon Nova things where you just either combo out or you build a plan B into the deck. But most players will just try to go for their Big Bang energy and try to get the value off Nova. So my opening hand, admittedly, is not something I would probably normally keep in a game 1, but I knew what my opponent was playing because we were recording the game, and I opened up like double Blessed Cathedral, and I know it's a very, very important card in this matchup if you can stick it. So I decided that I was going to keep it and try to get the value, because again, it's very important for this deck in particular to get value off the Blessed Cathedrals. Andromeda is a staple that we'll see as a 4 of in every Star Dragon deck until the end of time, it feels like, but just very good option card for either blowing up a Nexus, deleting a 3k power unit, and then also its Confront is very, very strong. So all around a very strong unit we can expect to see a lot of out of Star Dragons. So some of my favorite openers with Penton and Caladrius. This is your I want to play Magic staple card combo early on, and of course Gleam of Hope is just going to allow us to draw some extra cards here. Now it is important to remember that the priority goes declare attack, and your opponent always has the option to play a flash first, killing Caladrius, or they can wait for me to play a Luster, and then if my Caladrius or any Luster unit dies before end of combat, that Luster card will then stay in the graveyard and not go back to our hand. So it's important that you pre-commit some spells, which you'll see me misplay later on, that get around the burn range that red will have, or you just have to accept that you're going to throw yourself into blow up range from their effects and hope they don't have it. Now here I was talking about the Andromeda just being a very good confront target, like 10k confront, or I guess 11k in this example because he has the Nexus as well. Surprisingly hits a lot of spirits very early on, so there are times where you just have a confronted up Andromeda, and that's good enough, or Andromeda, excuse me, to get the game done. So again, we're going to play another Caladrius. We are putting our cores on Cathedral to hopefully draw some extra cards, and then Gleam plus the reduction we have, and Penton makes it free. So just free draw card, free cycling, pretty much how the Luster deck wants to set up in the early turns. But again, it is very much all in on praying that this duck can survive and go the distance. Excuse me, chicken can go the distance for us. Red doing red things by just getting a lot of card cycling or card draw with both the Star Blessed and Charge Draw, giving Primitive a bunch more cards in their hand, and then Volcanic, of course, is going to help draw into their Nova and find the combo pieces that they're missing out on. So nice, we're going to do it twice. Confront again, Penton block again, except now we're getting the core and the draw card off of Cathedral, which honestly for us is fine. We need to draw through our deck anyways. Obviously losing the Penton is not ideal because it's one of our best enablers in the deck, but as long as we're not losing Caladrius, we're quite happy. Crafted Fairy Lapri, I've talked about this quite a bit. It's one of those things that it's good against white, and it's kind of a meta call. Like, you're playing it anyways, it's a 1-drop with 1 reduction, but I definitely don't love the card. It's really going to shake out to see how the meta unfolds, but it does help your Michaela dig 1 card deeper, and again helps with reduction, so it's just fine to play in the list. Third Penton because he's my favorite, and again just swinging in with the Caladrius, and again we're shortcutting here because 1, I'm doing the voiceover, and 2, we're going through the effects, but we are just doing, like, you know, pass parry. So here he does have the Volcanic break. I lose the duck, I lose the Gleam of Hope as well. Excuse me, chick, I keep saying duck because I'm thinking about the other cards. And so yes, I did get to draw some cards, but this was a very early turning point in the game for me because I very much struggled to draw Luster for the rest of the game, and that can be pretty devastating for the deck. As you know, the name stake mechanic, if you can't kill those spirits, it's going to feel pretty bad. But you're going to see that Cathedral will do quite a bit of heavy lifting as this game goes on, just giving us more chance to churn through the deck and try to find another Luster target. Now again, red doing red things. You can see part of Primitive's hand there, but because he's played, I think, 3 draw spells at this point, right? Just getting all those extra cards, plus the Volcanic helping him dig for extra draw effects as well. Just letting him sculpt the perfect hand. So again, here we're sacrificing the 1-drop. Don't care, that's perfectly fine for us. Getting another core, getting to draw a card. And here we have the Penton, which, again, in case he has some kind of effect or, you know, just losing it for no value doesn't feel good either. So I did decide to sacrifice the Penton here. And I think this is largely because my hand was very bricked at this point, but I think that was our 3rd Penton if I remember correctly. So definitely a consideration there not to block, just take it from life and try to keep our enabler on the board. Great Bow Angel has been one of my favorite cards. I know a lot of people are kind of hit or miss on it, but at this point we were begging to draw a Luster Spirit and just not having much luck in trying to go through our deck. So Great Bow Angel is a great filtering option if you want to build a more combo focused Michaela where it's like all in trying to find that card. Then Great Bow Angel can get there for you. And again, because of Cathedral, it's very easy to make this a 3K, which surprisingly still dies to a lot of things out of red, which could be quite unfortunate. But you know, 3K, it's gonna get us a card plus a core off Cathedral. That's just fine. So here we did get the Flavum, which I'm running this as a 2 of. It's really strong against white, just being able to tap their blockers and get around that way. But really all of your, like, Shin is the best Luster, period. Of course, here he's going to have the 2nd Volcanic break to make me very sad. But the 5 cost, you know, can be quite expensive to play offhand, but getting to untap itself, getting to have Luster at 1, there's a lot of more flexibility that it can give you. And here we decide we just need to be aggressive. We're going to lose to the confront otherwise. Just making sure he paid for it correctly, but he did. And trying to go against his Ice Shields now because my hand was pretty awful and we're just praying that he doesn't have Nova or a follow-up here to punish us for it. And just try to, you know, hopefully draw into something next turn. Another burst card going down, most likely Absolute Ice Shield, or you just always assume that it's Absolute Ice Shield, but it doesn't really change our game plan at this point. It's we need to try to be aggressive and not give him enough time to get to Nova at this point. So we are just going to be trying to turn things sideways on our turn to hopefully kill him before he can find his last combo piece for the Nova to, you know, blow up our board and then also just go back up to 5 life, both being very, very strong here given the board state. So this is his Blazing Boar. I really like this as a tech option. We've been playing quite a few games. I think he said he's running 2 now, but getting back Arc is going to allow him to just have another cheap blocker on the board if he wants. Then also threaten that 2K ping, which is quite good as it turns out. So here activating our own Absolute Ice Shield, which we set and we knew that we could just be aggressive on our last turn, and now we just have to deal with the Blazing Boar. Now he did get to draw a card because we didn't have a blocker, but again, kind of just stuck with where we're at. Another Cathedral into Michaela, and this one I was just trying to get more value on the board, but here you can see a really bad, very, very bad flip for us, putting 3 Shins to the bottom. And at this point, I was in a very not great board site. So this is a important note I'll make here. At this point, there's a very strong consideration that I should have scooped on the spot to go to game 2. And one of the most important things I'll say for people who are going to launch events is starting today, make sure you record your games so you know how much time is left. You know, you can use a kitchen timer or whatever have you. You know how much time is left going into game 2 and game 3. Our game 1 here was, I think, 45 minutes before edit. And you'll see in game 2 that I had to just try to play a very different game than what Luster wants to do, because we would have timed out and Star Dragons could have just stalled out for the win because they would have won game 1, game 2 would have gone to a draw, and then that was it. So if the argument wasn't to scoop on the spot for the Michaela whiff, meaning that we wouldn't have any good Luster targets for quite some time, this is the other, you know, scoop consideration part 2. Now, in testing and recording games for content, I don't believe in, you know, cutting out matches and just showing the, you know, best of the best and worst of the worst in some cases, right? I want to show how some of these average games will go out, and then also provide some commentary about, like, you know, scooping considerations to go to game 2 or game 3 to save time versus is this a winnable board state? So we do get to do some really cool stuff, you know, throughout the rest of this game 1. And again, I tried not to just scoop for the sake of scooping when it comes to creating videos, because I think that can create a different, you know, view of the game itself. But this is definitely a spot where we're not feeling great. We're very much on the losing side. And now here again, we do have the Absolute Ice Shield, but he does get to draw the extra card off Scorched Battlefield. So from this point, yes, we have all the cores in the world and can do kind of whatever we want, but it's still kind of a bad spot to be in. So at this point, I realize now I should have used, this is a bit of a misplay on my part, I should have used a Soul Core just so I could dig one deeper on the other ones, because now my entire game plan as the Luster deck is try to burn through my deck as quick as possible while stalling out with the Cathedrals and praying you just can't blow up my board, and hope to find the Shins that I just put to the bottom. And this is going to be a really fun turn, but otherwise a misplay on the bigger picture. If I remember correctly, it's an Absolute Ice Shield that's going down here. So technically, I should have waited one more turn. I should have dug deeper with the Marigold to get an extra card, dig deeper, excuse me, wait an extra turn if that's an Absolute Ice Shield just to try to find a Luster target, and then kind of do that same scenario, because at the end of the day, he's going to draw one card no matter what. We're going to lose both of our Marigolds, and that's fine. But the high roll chance of hitting a Luster while having all these cores and then being able to keep the Exhaust Nexus makes this game play out quite a bit differently. So just loading up this Scorched Battlefields again. So at this point, we're going to get two card draws because the Marigold dies, and then the other arc is going to connect. And he's going to draw 2 cards here as well. And here is me playing the second Michaela, again, trying to go as wide as possible so I can dig through my deck a lot quicker. And then, of course, 2 Lusters there right off the top. So I think, if I remember correctly, if I would have done the Marigold turn, those are the 2 cards I would have drawn into off the Cathedral triggers, which would have made a world of a difference from this point. So that is definitely a, learning moment, but also, kind of RNG at the end of the day, where it's how many cards you want to dig versus how many Luster targets do you have left in the deck, and, trying to math it out from there. And then attacking here with Michaela, because we don't want it to just get confronted, or again, if they have a Nova kills it anyways. Like, it's not doing much of anything at all here on defense, as it were. And now we're just trying to figure out how many attacks can we get in, how can we pop the Absolute Ice Shield, is there a way that we can leave up a blocker to draw 2 more cards off of it. So we have to commit the last attack here just to make sure he's using his Absolute Ice Shield. Again, has a 4 cores on his Nexus if you just want to pay it that way. And then we still have 1 blocker here to draw some cards, and then the Absolute Ice Shield to save us. Star Blessed Draw, going to give him some even more cards to go to use. And here we're going to have another Big Bang turn. So here we're going to see double Andromeda to blow up both of our Blessed Cathedrals that had the draw that we were hoping to use for this turn. And then he's going to have the Nova, because remember, Nova is just an ascend. It doesn't matter what 6 costs that it is. Obviously, you need the Sea Worm and the Soul Core to heal up, but the Soul Core is already gone at this point, so it doesn't matter. And then, of course, Nova here is going to do quite a bit of work at cleaning up the board as well. So this is very, very strong turn for the Star Dragons. And again, just popping 2 Nexus and getting to blow up most of the board is pretty good, it turns out. And this is what really makes the Nova deck a very strong contender for set 1, because you can have these massive comeback turns, and the draw power out of red is making sure that you always have resources to use. So here he's using the Nova, we pop the Absolute Ice Shield. And again, at this point, we lost our Cathedrals, so we don't have any draw potential. There's a Nova on the board that is going to threaten a 10k deletion turn after turn after turn. And then you can see that we're just stacking up all our cores in the card there to just make the best use of the space that we have available to us. So even if we hit those luster units, because we spent most of our good spells already at that point, it's very unlikely that the luster loop would have done enough to save us against the Nova, so to say, but still would have made for a little bit better of a game overall. But I think, you know, in general, when you have to go through the second Nova and losing 3 Nexus in a game, you're feeling pretty bad as a yellow player. So here he has the Burning Force. He's not even going to mess around, just clear my board. I get to draw 1 card, not 2, because it counts as 1 event. And we are just, you know, empty all around at this point. The other consideration here too, if I would have both recognized it sooner and had a little bit better luck on the spells that I had picked up, there is a scenario here where we play to a deck out for the red player, because he's gone through, I think, 6 draw spells at this point, plus the Canyon activating turn after turn. And I think I asked him at the end of the game too, it's like he had 10 cards left, I think, by the end of it. So that's probably not a realistic win condition in a lot of cases against the red decks, but definitely something to keep in mind if your opponent is playing multiple Canyons and you are playing a deck that can stall out and give you some extra time. That might be something to consider. You just have to know what the board state's looking like and kind of what are your own outs for the deck. Great Bow here, we're just playing as a body. I think I didn't have any cards I could afford to put to the bottom, if I remember correctly. So here we're just trying to do as much as we can with Shin to reduce stuff. And here's where I start to do some math. So it's really cool that, you know, I have this angelic pressure, and you know, reasons why Shin is so good is we're gonna get to restand. I kind of mistimed the abilities there, but it's all the same. She's gonna get restand, and now we're gonna have a 6 angelic pressure turn, which is gonna help, you know, clean up the board a little bit for us. Now again, this is one of those things where I play the angelic pressure, priority passes back to Prim, goes back to my turn. I play another angelic pressure, priority passes back to him, he passes, then I play another angelic pressure, and it goes back to me, you know, again, until we move to blockers. And so here we're just gonna do the same thing again, where we're gonna just full value the angelic pressure. We're gonna kill his Nova because, well, we have to, or risk just losing our board here. And thankfully, because of the flying arc, we're putting ourselves out of a damage range. So here, you know, he's at 2, he has to block, so we do get a little bit of a board cleanup here, but we don't have anything on defense here. Like, we are out of absolute ice shields, we don't have multiple blockers, we have just the one who can hopefully draw us into something, but ultimately it's not looking too good from our side. And then our opponent does know that we have 3 angelic pressures in hand, but because he has these Scorched Battlefields, because he has the Volcanic Canyon, right, those 3 cards on his board alone are going to negate the angelic pressure and what it could do during his attack phase. And because there's no flash priority before that, it's going to just make them big enough. So what's better than 2 Novas in a game? Well, it's obviously the 3rd Nova that is going to once again pressure and delete the board that I had worked so hard to to build up and kind of value out. So again, this is a really great example of how this matchup can go and why red is so strong into yellow in general, and you know, really just creates a rough time. And I think you can see the other Shin there in my hand. But so yeah, the Nova is obviously going to be very strong. And here's where I recognize, I kind of looked over at the timer. It's like, all right, we have played a 50, or it's like 45 or 50 minute game out of the 55-minute rounds, if I remember correctly. It's like, okay, if there's any world of me winning, it's just, we gotta go. We gotta turn stuff sideways, hopefully get them dead and get into a game 3 and just try to find a more aggressive start. Because again, at the end of the day, Star Dragon Novas, if they're like in an all-in mid-range list, they can sometimes just whiff on their combo. They don't find Nova, they don't heal up, they don't hit their absolute ice shields, or they're stuck with a bunch of 6 costs in their hand, and sometimes that's just the game that you have to play. And of course, one of the best openers that he could hope for with the double Rain Needle, obviously just a 1-drop, they can go up to 3k. It's very good early on. And then the Scorched Battlefields gives him also the draw opportunity on the Crackback if he wants it. So unfortunate for me, we go for the Angelic Pressure because we're trying to set up on our next turn that we can remove effectively 2 blockers. But he does open his Volcanic Break to prevent us from getting the card back and killing one of our early Luster targets, making it a very not good spot for us right off the bat. And for here, we know that we're aggressive. He's getting to draw the extra cards, but we just need to keep our aggressive options open and try to find a window where we can just attack out where we need to. So here we're going to play Shin just to get, you know, something on the board for us. Then we're going to swing. It is a 6k, and unfortunately for us, he has the second Volcanic Break for exactly 6k. Which is going to kill our last good Luster unit. Now, if we had the Flying Arc, obviously that would have helped us get out of that range. It would have been really good for Shin against red in general. So I think it's one of those things like, yes, you have to deal with the Nexus removal that red has in spades, but Flying Arc is quite a good card. So here's where Prim realized that he doesn't have his ideal opener, but he notices that I'm being more aggressive and he just wants to wall off, and it's absolutely correct where he now gets to kill my last guy, and he's able to establish a board presence that's going to make it very difficult for the Luster deck to break through. So this is, again, one of the downsides with being more aggressive in the opener, is that now you're giving your opponent the extra cores, and they can capitalize on it quite well if they have their Nexus and other cost reductions going for them. So Ultimate Irony, Flying Arc off the top. Obviously, the Andromeda would have blown it up anyways on the following turn, but at least our Shin would have survived, you know, or at least gotten around the Volcanic Break, which would have been nice. And at this point, we just had to pass. Obviously not great for us. More card draw, another Absolute Ice Shield for Prim, and you know, this game is very much out for us, but we had to go for, again, an aggressive window because we knew the timer was running out. And we just didn't have the opportunity to. So here's a huge misplay. I was trying to work out a scenario where that's an exhaust Nexus in my burst, because I wanted to try, when I saw the double Nexus earlier, I'm like, okay, he's probably going to have a third Nexus. That's minus 6k to his board that I can do, and then hopefully set up a Crackback, which would, you know, board wipe and try to put things back at parity. But it obviously kind of played against myself and didn't get to where we wanted. So Gleam of Hope, just draw a card. Angelic Pressure to make sure his guy dies, but we are very much out of this game at this point. So with that, thanks for watching another gameplay video of Dawn of History, and make sure to like and subscribe for future content, and see you next one.